Welcome to Mercedes Second Chance Podcast, where we share real life stories about addiction, getting clean, and being given a second chance. Hi, my name is Mercedes Whitecalf, and this is Mercedes Second Chance. I am here with a wonderful guest. I have the opportunity of meeting with a dear friend and a mentor of mine, Mr. Walter Bailey. Why don't you talk about who you are and kind of what you do?
Hey, sure. Thank you for having me, Mercedes. Walter Bailey. Yeah, mentor.
Slash
A variety of other things.
Right.
So, I don't know exactly what you want to know first, but definitely I'm very excited about this opportunity.
Yeah. So basically, what amazes me about you is that you're like me. You come from where I come from. Our stories are somewhat different, but we're really the same in kind. You talked about openly on platforms of struggling with substance abuse and addiction. You talked about being a local native. You're from here. Dreams of going to, it's the NFL, right? And then not going, but then having a second chance at life and being something that is, to me, even more greater because you impact so many more people doing what you do now. And so I guess, I just wanted to kind of start with, how did it all start?
Hey, okay. Well, it all started, I don't know how my mom and dad met, but conceived in 1970. Breaking it all the way down, I come from Portland, come from a loving, kind family. I'm the youngest of five siblings. I tell you what, there was dysfunction, but there was nothing but love. But what I remember from what people tell me is before I could walk, I could run. So somehow, running. Athletics
Natural
came,
born athlete.
Right? Just
okay.
Athletics came into play, and what I can say is I picked up on that very, very quickly. Had my other siblings that were athletes and stuff, and it just was a natural fit for me. But also, as I got older, what I realized too is I was good, right? But I paid the price, right, from getting beat up and slammed by my older brothers because I have four older brothers, and my sister's the oldest, and it was tough love, right? Yeah. Tough love. There was church and all of these things. But as I got older, what I realized is I was naturally gifted at sports, but I also realized there was something inside of me that was missing. Right?
Yeah, something. Yeah.
It was just something that was missing. And so when I say missing, as I got a little older, I think I replaced whatever I was missing with acting out, and acting out was negative for me because acting out, here comes school. So I started acting out and getting in trouble, and I could, retrospect back to by the time I was in first grade, right? Just getting in trouble, Woodlawn middle grade school. And so my parents, by the time I was in the second grade, they made a decision to bus me out to a white school in the suburbs called Sacagawea. And I can tell you, I was like 8, 9 years old, and I just remember getting out there and being called the N-word, and I had to start fighting. So those behaviors were still there, but it was a different look than in my community. Yet and still, I'm playing. Well, I should say track was first. I did that first.
You did track too?
I did.
Okay.
Track was my first sport. I still have a world record.
Wow.
In the 880, 9 and under. So by the time I was 8, 9, my second sport was basketball. Okay. So in my transition from, Woodlawn grade school to Sacagawea, what I started to realize is that there were still behaviors that I was going through, but there were different people that didn't look like me, right? There was more white people, right? So there was a different circumstance and a different set of challenges for me, right? So regardless of the challenges, I still have that behavior getting in trouble. But I started to understand the fact of, regardless of me getting in trouble, I can still be this athlete, right? I can still play basketball and run track in the summer. And I got older, the behavior still persisted, right? By the time I was in 8th grade, I was still having those behaviors. And then I had started football 2 years prior to that. So in sixth grade, I started playing football. So it was football, basketball, and track. Track being my first sport, I started loving basketball and football more. So I stopped being, I shouldn't say as good. I just didn't practice.
Put in the effort like you
Right.
did with the other
Yeah,
two.
but it was still natural. It was a still natural fit. And I was great at it. But what I can say by eighth grade with these behaviors and moving forward, that magical magnifying mind of mine would still wander because I was missing something.
Still
I
missing
still
something.
missing something,
Right.
getting disciplined, getting beat by moms, and I only got a couple whippings from dad, but them was the most memorable ones because they was beatings. But that didn't stop the fact of whatever that was that I was missing. So by the time I completed eighth grade,
And when you say that didn't stop it, meaning you did things to get yourself in trouble, and those beating, looking for something to fill that piece that you were missing, and then getting in trouble, you got beat, and you still didn't stop. You still were searching.
right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's strange too as we progress with this. I can come back and that'll be a caveat. But what I realized is, well, if you knew that you were going to get a whooping, why would you keep acting out? Well, when you go to school and you're young around new people, I'm trying to gain some new friends, right? But in all actuality, I was just a lost little kid trying to find my way. And what I felt I was missing, which I had no idea, it came and morphed into acting out to get attention because I wanted people to like me, right?
Right.
So attention seeking behaviors, I wanted that. So eighth grade, I graduated eighth grade. I got suspended right before eighth grade graduation.
Oh no.
And then the next thing I know, I had this conversation with my mother. See, you going to high school now, and you're not going to be doing all that stuff that you used to do because somebody going to be bullying you just like you bully these other people. And I kind of understood that or whatever. But during the summer, eighth grade to ninth grade year, I became a bottle count for the store across the street from my house on 15th and Deacon. Mr. Lee owned this store, right? So I was able to be this bottle count, and I was real excited, making about $5-10 every weekend or whatever. But there was this Bartles and James commercial that would come on, and I remember vividly the California cooler that when that came out, because there were commercials for Bartles and James, and I was like, well, Bartles and James was the two older white men, but when California coolers came out, ooh, it was like the party drink. So I said, whoa, let me get that. But
Right.
I didn't know. I was just saying it in my mind. So Mr. Lee said what he always does on a Saturday night. Hey, finish up and then come back and let me know. So I stocked the shelf, and then those new ones came in. It was fruit punch. So I'm thinking fruit punch, but I knew better. I knew it was
Right.
alcohol in it, and I put it outside, right?
Is this how you took your first drink?
This is how I took my first drink.
Okay.
He let me out. I went back, hit the top. Ooh, bam. Once it hit, that sense of ease and comfort that filled my belly. And then that burp that came, and then it was on. It was like, I need that, right? That's what I was missing.
Right.
But I had no idea because guess what? I drank half of it and got sick, right? So I didn't drink anymore. But then I get to high school, and this is what happened. I started to drink a little bit, but I started playing football, basketball, and track, but I was playing at a high level. So I ran track, varsity track. I played varsity basketball. And then I got to play a little bit of varsity football, but I lettered in track and in basketball. But it was different because I had to act mature. And then before acting mature, I had to align with friends that were from the neighborhood that I knew and grew up with. So guess what was going on? Some other people was doing some other things that I'd never done before. And I took my first hit of weed.
And then
Right.
weed came. Okay.
Yeah. Then I took that first hit of weed. And then next thing you know, I became like, woo, because I wanted to be accepted. I
Right.
wanted to feel a part of. And through my freshman year, there were parties and all these things. But mind you, those behaviors still followed me, right? Freshman year, I'm a fast forward. The progression of my disease followed me sophomore, junior, and through my senior
You were
year.
drinking and smoking the whole
Drinking
time.
and smoking. So it went from a little bit to a little bit more, to a little bit more, and then to more.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time, my sophomore year went, I still had these behaviors lettered in all three sports. Then I got my first letter of college from college, which was
first
track,
letter.
right?
Okay.
From track,
Okay.
from, mind you, it was
Was it an offer?
Stanford.
It was
Yeah,
Stanford.
Stanford. I said, what? How? What?
And this is while drinking and smoking.
While drinking and smoking.
Okay. So the message, the subliminal message is this is okay.
Well,
It's not holding me back.
This is okay, but this is what is making me identify with what I want.
Mm-hmm.
And what I want was what I thought other people wanted me to want, which was to be famous and to be a figure, because I didn't have the people skills. I was even doing interviews, but by the time I was a sophomore and I wound up getting another letter from the University of Pennsylvania, my world changed when I became a junior in high school. Mm-hmm. Then all kinds of letters started coming for football, right?
So you got the Stanford track letter when
I was a sophomore.
When you were a sophomore.
When I was a sophomore, and I also got a letter from Pennsylvania. Ironically enough, two academic, like iconic schools. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I did okay. But that's the other thing. So
where did you end up going?
I wound up going to the University of Washington.
So when did you get that offer?
I got that in my junior. I would actually say I think I got a letter when I was a sophomore, but they came to see me as a junior. So when my world changed is when recruiting really started taking off my junior year. So the University of Washington put the full court press on me, but at the same time, playing these three sports and identifying these other issues that were behaviorally, I felt like this. I felt like I can do no wrong because I just have to go out on the football field.
Right.
So
that'll make up for
yes, indeed, it'll make up for it. So
shortcomings.
Fast forward to my senior year, I knew I was going to commit to the University of Washington and had a great, football career season, football season. I had a great basketball season, and I had a decent track experience. But that track season, I didn't achieve like I did my junior year. My junior year, I won state in the long jump. Mm-hmm. But like I said, I just stopped practicing because it wasn't track at that time. As I got older, I just lost interest because guess what? In Portland, people highlighted football at that time in basketball. Right?
Yeah, football and basketball.
Right.
Definitely.
So for me, I knew I was going to University of Washington. I graduated high school, and then I didn't pass my SAT. So I had to go to Western Washington up in Bellingham, right?
Oh,
yeah. I went to Bellingham, and I went there for 3 quarters, and the people up there, it was amazing. It was like a glorified like high school all-star league, basically. Mm-hmm. But the people didn't think I was going to the University of Washington, and I was like, shoot.
I'm out of here.
Right? But guess what? When I got to Western Washington, I could drink every day, and I didn't have to go to school, right? Mm. So high school was different because I could have these experiences, but I had to go home to mama and daddy's house.
Right. There's some accountability.
Right.
And so, now you don't. Okay.
Yeah. So once I get to Bellingham, I didn't have that accountability, but guess what? I ran out of money. It really wasn't really behavioral challenges because I had to really act mature. So with no money, I just couldn't do stuff. Right. So I surrounded myself with people doing the same type of thing or whatever. Somehow I made it through the 3 quarters, and then I had to go to PCC. Right, to get the rest of my credits to transfer into the University of Washington. Mm-hmm. Transferred into the University of Washington in 1989, and I'll make this the caveat. I had a beautiful career at the University of Washington. Played 3 years, went to 3 Rose Bowls, won 2 Rose Bowls and a national championship, which we split. We tied with Miami in 1991. Okay, but along the way, here comes the drinking.
Right, because it still comes. Everything's coming with you.
Oh,
it's getting dragged from Portland
you, right?
to Bellingham to Portland to Seattle. Okay.
The progression.
Right.
I'm thinking by the time I'm a senior, I'm thinking I'm gonna be a number 1 draft pick.
Right.
I'm thinking I'm getting ready to buy mama a house, all my family houses, and all of that. But guess what? I thought I was above the law. I thought I could talk to my coaches any old type of way, but nobody saw because of me drinking, me smoking weed, me womanizing, that these behaviors were going to be detrimental to me. Right.
Self-destructive
behavior.
Yeah.
So what happened from that point is I wound up not going to the NFL. I got hurt in the last Rose Bowl against Michigan. And then I had a decision to make. I went to the NFL Combine 1993, and guess what? I tested positive for alcohol.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
I tested positive for alcohol. So guess what? I signed a restricted free agent deal in for the New York Giants. My best friend was a tight end that was drafted the year before. Man, I went out there. I was killing them. I was killing them. But guess what? I couldn't. That alcohol, right? But weed, marijuana was in my system. So they took another UA, and I'll never forget this call. 1993 July. Dan Reeves just was appointed the head coach to the New York Giants. Called me on my break before I was going to go back for summer camp to start for the New York Giants. He said, "Walter, you're a hell of an athlete. I would love to have you on our team, but unfortunately, this is an investment, and you are not in that mode because of certain things. We have to go with somebody that we can depend on." And it broke my heart because that was the first time I ever been cut from anything in my life. And I tell you what, I had an agent at the time, and I cried. And in a day, I was playing Canadian football, right? I played Canadian football. So I met the expectation to get to the NFL, but I didn't achieve that. But I played in the Canadian Football League for a year. I had a great time, but here comes the partying, and here comes the womanizing, because like you said, wherever I went, there I'll go, right?
Yeah,
so all those behaviors came with me. They came, they were attached to me at the hip. And so people wise, my family, I still had all this support and a lot of love and admiration, but people didn't even know I was in the blender. I was in this sick abyss that I had no idea, right? I had no idea, right? So guess what? After that year, I got traded to a different Canadian football team, and I didn't take the measures or whatever. I was supposed to sign this contract, and I didn't do it because I just wanted to go to Edmonton and just show up and show out for one more year so I can go back to the NFL. Do you know I got there in Edmonton, 1994? They cut me on my third day.
Why?
No, my second day.
Why?
My second day, because I didn't sign a contract,
Oh,
and
because
they
of
was
that?
like, yeah,
That technicality. Oh.
yeah. So they cut me. So check it out. This is where it gets ugly.
Mm-hmm.
I had a decision to make. I was coming back to Portland. I'm on the plane from Edmonton, and I was like, okay, I can keep working out, or I can come back to Portland and get my truck and go back to Seattle and party. And I decided
to party.
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
And that's where my life spiraled out of control for the next 20 years. Becoming a father, not being there for my daughter, had another daughter, not being able to be there for her, not being able to hold a job, started running through the lives of my family and friends like a tornado. I never could tell the truth about where I was.
Right. We live double lives.
Yes, indeed. I could never. And also with that progression became more prevalent for me to try something different and new. So anything that looked good, tastes good, and felt good, I was putting into my body.
Right.
Right.
For that instant gratification. Yeah.
So take it from 1994 until I made a decision in 2010 that I needed help. And that wasn't easy, right? But I was in a crack house.
So from 1994 to 2010, you were partying.
I was.
So you thought?
Yeah, well, it started, the abyss and tornado started in 1994. And basically all that meant was for me not having any accountability to anything.
Right. And then it went on to 2010. And what happened in 2010?
2010, me staying in a crack house.
That's at the end of the road.
Me being in a crack house, my best friend had been in contact. So when I used, and at that time, my disease had progressed. By the time I got to that level, first of all, I didn't have no money. I ain't got nothing besides 2 bags of
and be standing in a crack house, right?
Yeah, 2 plastic bags of garbage, right? But somebody let me use their phone, and my best friend was in recovery, and I just happened to call him. And the way it went down was 2 girls were in treatment, and one girl I used to get loaded with. So she escaped out of treatment from Central City Concern, the 8x8. Right. And this girl brought another girl with her over here. So, of course, I'm like, because they had money and and they wanted to get the stuff. So I was like, yeah, let's do it. So that next morning, all the stuff's gone and whatever. Then the girl goes like this. She called her sponsor and she was like, yeah, I'm here in this crack house with Walter. And I was like, what? I was like, hold on. You gonna just say my name? And then I was heated. But then she said something that turned my life around. She said, 12 steps doesn't work. And I started to cry because this person, I would see them, and in the last year of my disease, this person would get clean like 4 months at a time and get a car, get a job, and get a place to live. And I was like, after thinking about it, I started crying because I said, no, it worked in you. It worked in you. And she was like, no, it doesn't. Grabbed her friend, and she wanted more money from whoever the sponsor was or whatever to come and get her. That's when I made the call to my best friend. His name is Matt. And whoever's phone it was, he wasn't there. I left him a message, and Matt called it back, and he was like, whoa. And then I said, hey. And he was like, hey, your parents miss you.
Oh,
I miss you.
Yeah.
What do you want to do? And I said, I don't know. Usually I'm hip, slick, and cool. Always got an answer. But I said, I don't know. And then he goes, are you willing to go to any length? And I said, I don't know.
To stay clean.
Right. Because I didn't know nothing about that. And then he goes, where are you? And I said, I'm on 33rd in Killingsworth. And it was close to there, but he 32nd and Simpson. So he goes, okay, give me the address and I'm coming to get you. He was there in 20 minutes. The dude opened his car door, and it was like me seeing the second coming of Jesus Christ, like his smile and whatever it was. I felt instantly from all that garbage and all the crux of me and this disease that was on my back like a bear or a gorilla.
Someone came to get you out.
Yeah.
That was your exit from hell.
It just released. And so from that point, this is what happened. I transitioned with him because he had already had 4 years clean and sober. So I went into an AA meeting and I started raising my hand. And the next thing you know, I had a month and a half clean and sober, and he was feeding me. I was reading the big book. Then I transitioned to DePaul Treatment Center, and I went through treatment for 6 months, got out. Right before I got out, my father passed away. I was able to see him on his deathbed, and my dad, my dad and I had this horrific, loving, hate relationship, but he loved me because he saw me going down the wrong path.
Right.
And what he saw was the last day before he passed, he said, let me see my baby. And I came into the room. My best friend came and got me on the emergency pass. And when he looked at me, he took off his glasses. My dad was 6'4", 215. By the time the cancer ate him up, he was 6'4", 160 pounds. But he still had his mind. And he took his glasses off and put it back. He said, come over here. He said, that's my baby. He said, that's all I wanted. And boom, immediately I knew that for my life, I didn't know it was going to continue to change, but that was the beginning of a new life. I put that old life down and then started to recreate my new life. Then, started going to different meetings, to NA, AA, all the A's, right?
All the A's.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I just started getting blessed in all of these things, but I also remembered that there was a simple suggestion that I needed to follow if I was going to do. And that was to take contrary action and to take suggestions.
Right. I remember them saying that,
Right.
like, if nothing changes, nothing changes.
Yes.
And then they say all you have to change is everything.
Everything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I was able to do. I was able to adhere to some principles in my life and some steps.
What were the principles that you were adhering to? Like 3 main ones.
The 3 main principles, and I'll just bring it back to the golden rules, like do no harm to other people, integrity, right?
Integrity.
And be honest.
And integrity is what? Doing the right thing
when
no
nobody
one's
else
watching.
is watching.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so just implementing these things into my life. And what I started to slowly notice is those relationships that I destroyed from my daughters, my oldest daughter and my youngest daughter, they didn't happen overnight, but I stayed sober. And
They were being restored.
Yes. They started being restored, restoring relationships with my mother. My father passed away. I was going to go stay with my best friend. But since my father passed away, I went back and took care of my mother.
Took care of mommy.
Yeah. For like 6.5 years until she passed. And
So you lost both your parents.
I lost both of my parents
Okay.
in recovery. But I'll tell you, the most beautiful gift in my life was working the steps with my sponsor at a year and a half sober.
Would you like attribute working the steps to not going back and getting loaded when your parents died?
I just feel like it's the metamorphosis of my change and progression in life, because I don't know about if I would have ever gotten loaded again if I wouldn't have, gone through treatment or taken the steps. But what I can say is I did that. I did it.
And that was the suggestion.
Yeah,
so you get
I
a
took the
meeting,
suggestion.
get a sponsor,
Yeah.
work the 12 steps because
Yeah.
they're 12 steps programs.
That's right.
Yeah.
I did it. But here's the beauty in this. The third step. So I did step 1, 2, and then at the
What's the third step?
The third step was
We made a decision to turn our will and
in
the
our
lives
over to the care of God as we
understand him. Right.
Right. But my mother was very religious. My mother used to pray for me. Like, I would go over there loaded when I would needed to get some money. And I used to steal from my mother. I used to break into my parents' house when I was getting loaded. I would steal the hard-earned money that she made. Right. So for me, as I, clam up thinking about it, I had to realize this. I'm taking this step, and my sponsor, we're in this little room like this, right? My mother would be out there, and my mother would be praying. She would be work-witting Jesus, covering with the blood of Jesus.
That's
Lord,
right.
restore him to sanity. She would be listening to our conversation.
With you and your sponsor.
Yeah, and I would be feeling big, and I would be feeling great, and I'll be looking at my sponsor. He just knew I just had this intent of success, because it just, whatever was going on, was working.
Yeah.
But I had developed and started cultivating a relationship with my higher power, which is God, as I understand him.
Right. Because
So
that's what the 12 steps are for.
Right,
Just
yeah.
get us closer to God.
Yeah, so I wasn't scared of God anymore.
Right.
So we took the step, and then my sponsor hugged me, and he was like, hey, man, I just want to ask you something. What do you think about you and I going in and getting on our knees with your mom and saying the third step prayer? Man, I started pop locking. Oh, yeah, come on, yeah, come on. I was like,
Right.
ooh, I got goosebumps. I got goosebumps because we grabbed each other's hand, and I can take you through it. It was, once we recited it, and to hear my mother being a part of it, God was all over us. He was all over us, and I felt like I was levitating. But I also realized that the sincerity of purpose in my life had just become crystal clear. Continue on the path.
Right.
Continue on the path.
Right.
And that's what I did through each step. And, as I completed the steps, and then I was so fired up. And I get fired up when it comes to recovery, because that's my life.
Yeah.
You know
Because
what I mean?
what you went through. People say
Yeah.
that to me, like, why are you so fired up? And it's like, if you knew what I had been through, if you was where I was, you would be jumping too. You would be
Hey.
laughing too,
Right.
because it's like the slingshot analogy. Like, the further we pull back, the further down the scale we go, the better it feels once we've gone up.
That's it.
And when we continue to go up.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Okay. So then your parents, your mom was like totally accepting to the 12-step program, and she's Christian and religious. And then what happened next?
From that, I finished the steps, and then at 2 years sober, I started to work at the treatment center that I went through.
That you went to? Okay.
Yeah, I started as
What a turnaround.
a milieu counselor, and the next thing I know, there was a young brother that was younger than me that had more clean time, and he was a great counselor. He relapsed, and so I had been working there about a year, and then they came at me and was like, "Hey, we need you to be a counselor." And I was like, I don't want to be a counselor. I like my little job right here.
Right. Because it's
And
scary to grow.
It was scary.
Yeah.
And so reluctantly, I accepted it. And it was hard. It was really hard because everybody else had schooling about trainings, and I was thrown in, and I was flying by the whim of my pants. And I would not suggest that to anyone, but I'm so glad and grateful that I did it. But by the time I did it for 3.5 years, right, at DePaul, but I was ready to get out of that because it's a professional boundary, and I learned a lot, but I wanted to be somebody that could encourage and also be a person that would be approachable when it comes to recovery. And I felt like being a counselor, it enabled me it did not allow for me to do that because you had to have a professional boundary
Right,
set
right.
in certain
So,
situations.
and you do have your bachelor's degree, right?
I do not.
You don't?
No, I do
Oh
not.
my goodness.
No. So I can tell you, there's things in our lives or things in my life that I still need to achieve.
Yeah,
And
maybe
getting-
if it's for you,
Yeah,
that's God's will.
right?
That's what I learned.
Yes,
If it's
indeed.
God's will,
right?
yeah,
You know, so one of the things though, I'm glad you brought that up, is that's a part of some of the things that you can achieve, right? So I've achieved a lot of things, but I still have other things that I can't wait to achieve, but I have to be humble enough to understand that I have to set SMART goals. So small, measurable, what is it? Small,
action?
measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely.
Okay,
Right?
that's
Goals.
smart. Yeah,
You know what I mean? So for me, I feel like I'm ever evolving.
Right.
And I think about that. I think about where I am, and I also think about, hey, what are other achievements? But as we continue to grow and evolve, I also know that I'm not in control, right? I
right.
have to
God is
allow-
in control.
Yes, I
Yeah.
have to allow myself to be humbled
Right.
enough to listen to the direction of where I need to go. And so that's what I've
From
been
a
able
power greater than yourself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that looks like mentorship, and it's always God, but sometimes he speaks through mentorship.
Yeah.
And, and I see like a pattern in your life why you like just give up trying to control it, because everything that happened that changed your life, from what I can see, you weren't in control of. You weren't in control of them cutting you.
Right.
You weren't in control of just the random UAs. You weren't in control of even calling your friend and him coming to get you. All you did was make a call. You don't know where that was going to go. Maybe you would have like not answered, and then going, it was like thing by thing, but you weren't in the lead. God was just like ordering your steps all the way through.
Yes.
Yeah. And I love that. I see that. So like, what are you doing now? Like, what's your role? What do you do?
Well, I do a variety of
And you've been
things.
clean how long?
12 years.
12 years.
12 years, 4/30/2010. I'm forever grateful for that date. But right now, I work for the Oregon Health Authority. I am an operations and policy analyst. They say number 2, but I am also a advisory council coordinator. So I do a few different things. This is I haven't even been there a year yet. So this is like 10 months. So I'm still integrating into my role and things. But I come from after DePaul, 3.5 years there, then I transitioned to the Imani Center through Central City Concern. And I worked there for 5.5 years. I was a peer support specialist and then became a peer support / counselor at the Imani Center. But on that line and in that experience, I was able to do something that I always wanted to do, and that was work with my people, African Americans, right? Culturally
Yes.
specific.
Yeah. And
right?
uplift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And uplift. It was hard.
Why was that important for you?
It was important because it's nothing about us without us, right? I'm gonna say that.
Okay, say that again.
Nothing about us. About us. Nothing about us without us. I'm sorry, I said it wrong. Nothing about us without us, right? And it wasn't like I just took that concept from back then. It's like what our mantra is today, like from the Oregon Health Authority. That's one of our things for the Office of Recovery and Resilience where I work. But it takes me back to my experience of wanting to work with African Americans. See, there's just different intersections when we look at our people, right? We come with this beauty, we come with soul, we come with gifts, but everybody is not the same.
Right.
Every African American that you come
Not
in
at
contact
all.
is not the same. So what I learned in that experience is how do I adjust my lens to each experience? And that took some practice because I struggled my first couple years, right? Because I was like, man, this is hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was going to say, so like when I'm looking at you, you've got all this success, you've done all these things, and you're really, really positive. And that's why I love you. Because, I'll call you like, whoa, fix me, help me, and you always got something that feeds my spirit and feeds my soul. And I know to live like that, you have to constantly feed your spirit and your soul, because I do the same things. Like you pour into me, I pour into other folks, but like my help has to come from something much larger.
Yeah.
Right. So, but there are those inner critics that'll tell you inside your own head, like, you can't do that. What are you thinking? You ain't got a degree, and then here you are making all these changes and stuff like that. If you had Well, first I want to ask you, what do you do when you feel fear or you feel doubt? And then in your whole life, like if you had a piece of advice you would give your old self, what would it be?
Ooh, a piece of advice I would give my old self is never give in and never give up. Right?
Never give in and never give up.
Never give in and never give up.
Okay.
And it's so profound because I never gave in when I played sports. I never gave in.
Right.
But when it came to living life, I didn't know how to live life. If I wasn't guided when I was a youngster, by the time I was 24 years old and I lost the guidance, I didn't know how to live.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Right.
I didn't know how to live. So the other thing that I'm doing today, right? I'm a high school football coach.
Oh, wow.
Right. And then I also have my own businesses called Dynamic Athlete Solutions, which I am helping to save the lives of young people by creating trainings that are culturally responsive, right? For the audiences are student athletes or young people, coaches, and then also leaders. So leadership staff and coaches.
Oh, wow.
And for student athletes. And my whole thing is, when I look at my experience when I was younger, is these different audiences work together closely with these young people, but they very rarely communicate with each other.
Right.
So
it's like it's a whole solar system,
Yeah,
a whole village.
right.
Yeah, just all staying connected.
And if you are the leader, the principal, Mercedes, and the next thing you know, I'm working for you, but you know I'm one of your best coaches, but you know I'm too scared, or you might have shot me down on some stuff. I'm not going to tell you certain things that happens with a kid, right? Because that's my experience with sports.
Yeah.
And the whole idea is you don't have to tell all the dark things, but you can start to realize, hey, when I don't know how to handle something, I need some help. Everybody can use some help. And so start accessing opportunities to better people's selves, right? To access information, because I don't have all the answers. When I don't, man, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to ask somebody else, because I don't know, instead of going off bad or old information. And that's what I used to do all the time. Sometimes I still do. I ain't perfect.
Right.
I'll go right back to that default of, all right, I know. No, you don't. I don't know.
Yeah, like let me pause and stop. And that comes from recovery too, if I'm not wrong. Asking, and I remember one of the first principles they said in recovery was like surrender. And I was like, I was raised by a Native American mom. So it's like, surrender? Absolutely not. You know what I mean? And then ask questions, like even my Black side too. We don't want to like burden anybody or, you know, it's like we'll do it ourselves. But in life, that actually works against us, especially for addicts and alcoholics. Yeah. So you would definitely tell people to reach out, ask for help, open your mouth. Yeah. And the biggest thing is don't give in and don't give up.
That's right. Never give in and never give up. Something that also too, like some of the things that you and I have covered in the past is sometimes the thing that people don't realize about us in recovery, that there's the 3H concept, right? And I try to live my life like this, right? There's help. Sometimes we don't know that we need help. So how do we find it? The next thing is hope. Sometimes I can be hopeless, and all I need is just a little hope from somebody to just say, man, you can.
Right.
And then the third H is healing. How do I get to a place when I can start healing from the things that I experience, the things that I put other people through, the things that we've experienced together?
Right.
How can we heal? So I take that approach in my life of when I'm working with people professionally, and it spills over into my life, like working with young people or even with my kids or my loved ones. It's like certain concepts people need, certain things, like I need that.
Right. Yeah.
Don't get it twisted. I need help all the time, because I have this magical magnifying mind that sometimes the mind can wander off, but I can always bring it back and I can center it with God.
Right.
Because that entity, the light source, you know, the everlasting spirit is always there. It's just a matter of when I can tap in. Sometimes I don't want to. I want to feel that.
Yeah, like that conscious contact is there. He's there, but we don't know if we want to go for it or open it up, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I'm going to let you go because I know you have so much to do. And I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me and tell your story because it's so important, and I think the world of you. So say the name of your organization one more time so that we can find you. We can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Dynamic Athlete Solutions is the company, African American owned, right? And then you could check out my website, and it's www.dynamicathletesolutionsaltogether.com. So I'll make sure I say it again: www.dynamicathletesolutions.com.
Okay.
Right.
Got
and
it.
That's how you can find me. So for myself, like, thank you for allowing me this space and telling a little bit about, my story and being on Mercedes Second Chance. This is awesome.
All right. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Well, thanks for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, and visit our website at mercedessecondchance.com.